Donald Trump believed he could pressure Denzel Washington into paying $1 billion just to move things his way. He assumed money could silence Denzel and win his agreement. But Denzel doesn't play like that. He never bends for shady deals. And soon, Trump's whole plan would crash right in front of millions. What Denzel was about to say would leave the nation speechless. This wasn't politics anymore. This was a moment of truth. It was August 3, 2025. The heat in Washington, D.C. was intense. But the real tension wasn't about weather. The entire city felt like it was holding a breath. Somewhere above all of it, Denzel stood by his window, calmly watching his gaze, sharp, staring at a city that forgot what honesty looked like. News had just dropped. Trump made a move. He called for a full Senate break, blocking more than 100 important nominations. These weren't just random people. These were individuals ready to fix real problems. But Trump's power game stopped them. Every hour passing meant work delayed. Families left waiting. Progress stuck. Denzel didn't blink at the betrayal. He'd seen bigger men fall harder before. But another move was coming. One dirtier. Trump had a plan to test Denzel's strength before the entire world. That same afternoon, a message came. Trump wanted a one-on-one meeting. No press, no staff. Just them. Denzel knew exactly what that meant. When a man like Trump wants silence, it's never for something honest. But Denzel agreed. He believed in looking a man in the eyes before shutting him down. Inside a cold, quiet room, Trump was already sitting, his usual confidence on display. He leaned forward, voice slick. "Denzel," he said, "this Senate mess you're angry about, I can fix it. Your picks can be approved. Simple." Denzel didn't flinch. "What's the cost?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Trump grinned like a dealer, thinking he'd hooked a desperate buyer. $1 billion a donation. Wire it, and everything gets back on track. No trouble. No waiting. The silence that followed wasn't hesitation. It was Denzel weighing the insult. Trump thought this was just negotiation. He believed Denzel would give in. But Denzel's look cut like steel. "You're asking me to pay a ransom," Denzel said, voice smooth but firm. "You want me to take from the people so you can keep your circus going?" Trump shrugged. Still, smug. "Denzel, don't be shocked. This is how it's always worked. Don't hate the player, hate the game." Denzel leaned closer, hands together, voice dropping just enough to slice the air. "No, I hate men who think they own the game. I'd rather let the system stop completely than pay to escape your corruption." Trump's smile tightened. He didn't expect resistance. He expected fear. "You get paid every month, don't you?" Denzel's voice rose slightly. "Tell me, Donald, what have you built? What have you fixed? You've sold out this country for decades. And now you sit here, asking for more. You should be ashamed to be at this table." Trump had no answer. He sat trapped between pride and the quiet shock that Denzel wasn't giving in. And what came next would shake every part of the government. The meeting wasn't public yet, but Washington walls always listen. Whispers spread. Staffers looked at each other. Phones lit up. Rumors flew. Something cracked inside Denzel's car. The city sped past, but his focus didn't move. A man they once doubted, mocked, and underestimated, now standing against a system that thought it couldn't be touched. Back at his office, Denzel brought in his closest team. His son, John David, sharp and focused. His security chief, 3 trusted advisors. The room was tight, tension thick. Denzel spoke clearly. Trump asked for a bribe. $1 billion to restart the future of this nation. The room froze. John David leaned forward. "What's the plan?" Denzel's answer was ice cold. He wanted a secret deal. "I'll give him a spotlight. They think the truth will stay hidden. I'll make sure it echoes in every house." The next morning, August 3rd, the country was still spinning after the Senate shut down from the day before. Over 100 important roles, people ready to rebuild, stuck in limbo, frozen by games. But Denzel had a plan. He called a press briefing. Not his usual move, but this wasn't a usual day. The media rushed in. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, all packed into the room. Cameras rolling, mics live. Nobody knew what was coming. Then came the surprise. Denzel invited Trump to the White House live, on air. Trump, confident and clueless, accepted. He still believed Denzel would back down, maybe beg, maybe play along. Others had, right. But when Trump stepped into the East Room, cameras flashing, reporters silent, something felt wrong. Denzel stood at the podium, calm, sharp. Next to him, files, emails, videos, a screen waiting to light up. Trump grinned. Denzel didn't grin back. The moment was ready. In minutes, the nation would see something new. A man standing up to corruption, not hidden, but live. As cameras zoomed and reporters leaned forward, Denzel stepped up. His voice calm, his presence like a brewing storm. Yesterday, Denzel began, I received a filthy offer. I was asked to pay $1 billion, not for the people, but to make political wheels turn. $1 billion by silence. 2 by action. A gasp ran through the crowd. Trump blinked. The smile faded. Denzel continued, steady. That offer came from the man next to me, Donald Trump. He said he could end the Senate freeze. He said he'd move my people forward, but only if I paid. Trump jumped in. That's not. Denzel raised a hand. No yelling, just command. He pressed a button. The screen behind lit up. The voice was clear. Trump's. Smooth, proud, and caught. $1 billion, Denzel. That's all it takes. You want your people approved. Then you need to play the game. The room went still. The reporters leaned back, shocked. Even Trump's own team didn't move. Denzel turned toward the cameras. He said, I'd rather watch the Senate fall apart than trade this country's soul. I won't pay off corruption. Not with your money. Not with your lies. Trump didn't move. And right then, the whole country saw him crumble. As the clip ended, the East Room went silent. Cameras zoomed in on every side of a man who had been caught. Reporters just sat there, unsure whether to write, record, or breathe. Denzel didn't brag. He didn't have to. His next words hit hard but were calm. This is the real problem in Washington. Dirty deals hidden behind fake smiles. Lies sold as leadership. They thought the system would hide their tracks. But today, we took the cover off. The press jumped with questions, but Denzel raised his hand again. I'll answer later. This isn't about me. It's about showing people who's been playing with their future. Trump, clearly shaken, mumbled something no one could hear, and walked out in a rush. His pride broke in front of millions. That clip, Trump backing away, was already being shared and posted on phones across the country. Hashtags popped up fast. Hashtag Trump bribe. Hashtag Denzel speaks truth. Hashtag day corruption fell. But this was only the start. Within an hour, every big news station had picked up the story. Phones buzzed in, homes everywhere. Families turned on the news. Old veterans in small towns. Truck drivers in roadside diners. Single moms during their lunch breaks. Even people who hated politics couldn't stop watching. He said no, a news anchor whispered, stunned. Denzel Washington said no to $1 billion bribe. Those words echoed across the nation. Approval ratings didn't just go up, they shot up. Independents, struggling families, normal folks who had lost hope. They saw something different. Not just boldness, but respect. Some people cried watching the video. Not because of anger, because of hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, someone was still standing up for them. Meanwhile, Trump disappeared. No tweets, no press. His office shut down. Some tried to cover it up, but it was too raw, too real. Even his allies stepped back, acting like they hadn't seen anything. At home, John David Washington sat next to his father, watching the coverage. He said quietly, "You did the right thing, Dad." Denzel placed a steady hand on his son's shoulder. It was never about right or wrong. It was about honor. They forgot what that means. We'll help them remember. By the next morning, the story had grown even bigger. Investigative reporters started digging into Trump's past. The swamp wasn't just draining. It was falling apart. Old rumors about Trump began bubbling back. Hidden money trails, fake companies, shady business talks buried by old leaders. Denzel hadn't just said no to a bribe. He had opened a door. 2 decades of hidden corruption. In a tall office, Trump sat with his lawyers, uneasy. "Let it all come out," he said. No holding back this time. But fear had already started. Back in Harlem, a retired teacher made a shaky video on her phone. "I lost my pension during the Biden years. My husband got laid off. Now I see people like Trump were stealing from us all along. God bless Denzel Washington for standing tall." That video went viral. Denzel's office was flooded with letters. Not tweets, not emails. Real, handwritten letters. Some said only one line: "Thanks for not selling us out." Others were long, emotional stories about pain, struggle, and betrayal. People weren't just watching Denzel. They were feeling connected to him. While Trump's team scrambled, The Democrats were falling apart too. Some wanted Trump gone. Others went quiet. The Senate felt like a ghost town that morning. But Denzel, he was just getting started. As the story about the bribe roared through the country, Denzel stepped into the Roosevelt room. In his hands, a folder, one nobody had seen before. Inside were documents showing something worse. Illegal money transfers, hidden accounts, years of abuse of power, not just Trump, but others too. And almost every page had the same name, Donald Trump. Denzel calmly handed the folder to his lawyers. "Release it," he said. "Let the people see the full truth." All over the US, folks who once saw Denzel as just an actor began to see him in a new light. A woman in Ohio posted, "I thought he was just a celebrity. But this is real courage. No one says no to $1 billion unless he loves his country more than himself." In the Senate, John Thune sat frozen. He hadn't spoken since the last session. Now with Trump exposed and Denzel getting love from the public, Thune realized something chilling. He'd backed the wrong man. But Denzel hadn't even brought up Thune's name. Not yet. Because today wasn't just about Trump. It was about cleaning out both sides of the mess. And Denzel had only just begun. At exactly 3:45 p.m. on August 3rd, Denzel Washington walked onto the South Lawn. Reporters packed in close. Cameras ready. Millions were watching from homes, cafes, job sites. No teleprompters. No cue cards. Just Denzel, standing tall, with nothing to hide. He started gently. "America, I want to speak with you." No script. No filters. He spoke about betrayal, not just from Trump, but also from fake allies like John Thune. Leaders who once promised to help the people but gave in when power was on the line. He talked about the 100 nominees still waiting, about mothers stuck without health care, about small businesses choking under broken rules, about teachers left behind by greed. "They don't serve you," Denzel said, voice steady but filled with truth. "They serve themselves. They think you're too tired to fight back. They think money can silence everything. They think $1 billion could buy me. But I'm not for sale. I will never be a traitor. I will never sell you out." Somewhere in Arkansas, a retired Marine sat, watching from his porch, tears in his eyes. "He didn't give in," the old man whispered. "He picked us." After so many years, Americans didn't feel left out. They felt noticed. That night, while the sun went down over Washington, a small envelope arrived at Denzel's office. Inside it was a letter, written by hand on lined notebook paper by an 11-year-old boy from Pennsylvania. His name was Elijah. "Dear Mr. Washington, my dad lost his job 3 years back. Now we live in a small trailer. But he told me you're standing up for people like us. I saw you on TV today. You said no to $1 billion. I don't know how much that is, but my dad says it's a big number. Thanks for not giving up on us. Please keep fighting. You're my hero. Love, Elijah." Denzel read the letter twice, folded it gently, and put it in his top drawer. Later that night, he told his team, "Find Elijah. No press, no cameras. I just want to thank him." Outside the White House, people had started gathering, but it wasn't loud like usual. No angry chants, just quiet tears. People were thankful. For once, truth had cut through the lies. And it didn't bring defeat, it brought awakening. On the morning of August 4th, Denzel's team posted a new video. It didn't show Trump or senators. It showed a man named Harold Jenkins. He was 68. A fourth-generation farmer from Iowa. Inflation during the Biden years had taken almost everything from him. His wife had died last winter. In the video, Harold sat alone, worn out, on borrowed farmland. His son had moved to Canada to find work. Only 2 old cows and some faded photos were left. Holding one of those photos, he looked straight into the camera. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I don't have much, but I've still got my dignity. And today, I saw a man stand up for people like me. Thank you, Mr. Washington." The videos spread fast across the internet. Truck drivers, factory workers, small-town families, people who never posted about politics, started sharing their own clips. Men and women crying in kitchens. Teenagers hugging their parents. Veterans standing and saluting their TVs. They weren't sad. They cried because finally, someone saw them. Donald Trump had wanted power. He wanted to control the story. But Denzel gave something deeper. He gave them dignity. And that message began to echo in homes across the country. Later that day, something unexpected happened. Denzel's son, John David Washington, shared a short video online. It was filmed on his phone. Honest and raw. "I've seen my dad fight every single day. he said. People lie about him, betray him, try to break him. But you just saw him say no to $1 billion bribe, because he won't betray you. He paused, holding back tears. I read Elijah's letter. I saw Harold's video. You're not alone. My father isn't chasing power. He's standing up for all of us. The video exploded online. Teenagers who didn't care about politics reposted it. Influencers who once made fun of Denzel shared it with a simple caption, "This feels real." At the same time, Trump's office responded. They denied the bribe, blamed fake news, and accused Denzel of acting. But it didn't matter. The people had already seen the truth and they believed what they saw, not what Trump said. In a quiet office, Trump sat with the curtains closed. His phone was silent. No support, no messages, not even from his closest allies. His staff tiptoed around him. Trump turned on the TV. A waitress from Michigan was crying. "I lost my husband to cancer. We begged for help. No one in DC listened." But today, Denzel looked at the camera and said, "I serve you. No president ever made me feel like that." Trump turned off the TV. For the first time in years, he realized he wasn't leading the story. He was just another politician, shown for who he truly was. He remembered the private meeting. He was so sure Denzel would give in. Who says no to $1 billion? But Denzel did. Not for fame, not for ego, but for something Trump had long forgotten. Or Trump walked to the mirror and looked at himself. But the man looking back wasn't the kingmaker he used to be. He was just a shadow of what he once believed. Meanwhile, in a small church in Birmingham, Alabama, Pastor Ray Jefferson stood at the pulpit. He was live streaming to his congregation. Most were watching from home, tired from rising costs and job losses. Behind him hung an old, torn American flag. "I've served this community for 34 years. Pastor Jefferson said, his voice shaking. "Presidents have come and gone. But what I saw yesterday, Denzel Washington standing up and saying no to $1 billion bribe, that's rare. No one in Washington does that." He paused. That wasn't politics. That was courage. That was a man choosing his country over himself. And I'm proud to pray for him today. Families watching from home wiped away tears. Not from sadness, but from something they hadn't felt in years. Hope. In towns and cities, people gathered in prayer. For the first time in a long time, they believed someone in power remembered them. Outside the church, a simple sign stood in the grass. "We stand with truth. We stand with Washington." And that line started popping up everywhere. In diners, at gas stations, on home windows. But most of all, it was showing up in people's hearts. By evening, a black SUV pulled into a quiet trailer park in rural Pennsylvania. Secret Service agents stepped out. No flashing lights, no media, no show. Denzel Washington got out. Inside the small trailer, Elijah was doing homework at the kitchen table. When the door opened and Denzel walked in, Elijah gasped. His mother dropped a dish, tears running down her face. "Are you Elijah?" Denzel asked, kneeling to meet the boy's eyes. Elijah nodded, unable to speak. Denzel pulled the folded letter from his coat. It looked a bit worn. "This letter meant everything to me," he said softly. Elijah hugged him tightly. "Thanks for not giving up on us." Denzel hugged back, his voice calm but strong. "You're the reason I never will." For a few moments, there were no speeches, no cameras, no politics, just a man and a boy. Just human connection in a world that needed it badly. As Denzel walked out, Elijah ran to the porch. He called out, "Make America proud again, Mr. Washington." Later, a neighbor quietly posted a photo of that moment. The whole nation cried, not because of anger, but from something even more rare, belief. Just when Americans thought they had seen it all, one last twist shook the headlines. A secret video came out. It was quietly uploaded to a nameless account. But it didn't stay hidden. Millions of people watched a secret camera angle, showing the exact second Donald Trump gave a $1 billion bribe offer to Denzel Washington. Trump's voice came through smug and careless. "They'll never find out. Just send it through. Your team will push all the nominees fast. Quiet and clean." Then came Denzel's reply. "God, calm, cold, strong. You want to cheat the American people and use my name to do it? Not a chance." The video blew up. It was everywhere, in barbershops, on kitchen tables, inside classrooms. News channels tried to hide it, but Americans had already made their choice. This truth wouldn't be buried. Denzel didn't share the video himself. He didn't need to. The people had already made it. Their battle by midnight. Crowds filled the streets outside Capitol Hill. You can't buy truth. Denzel stood tall, and the people stood with him. Inside the White House, he stood by the window, not like a politician, but as a protector of the people. In small-town Missouri, a woman named Teresa Quell stood on her porch. She had a baby monitor in one hand, her phone in the other. Her husband, a welder, had lost his job months ago because the Senate couldn't agree. Help programs for families like hers had been stopped. She filmed herself wiping away tears. Mr. Washington, if you see this, I just want to say thank you. Not for politics, but for standing with us instead of their dirty money. They tried to use us. You didn't. She paused, her voice broke. We don't have much left, but we still have our dignity, because you kept yours. The video was only 56 seconds long, but by morning, over 20 million people had watched it. In his office, Denzel watched silently. He froze the video on the image of Teresa holding her baby, then softly said, "This is who we're fighting for." For the first time in many years, Washington's noise was quieted, not by money or politics, but by real people speaking from the heart. Inside the Capitol, a strange silence spread. Recess had only just started, but most senators hadn't left town. Now they were hiding. No press, no statements, no interviews. The Senate had gone silent. Whispers filled empty halls. Even John Thune, the one who planned the recess delay, stayed locked in his office, watching everything unfold in shock. The same man who thought he could trap Denzel by blocking confirmations had instead started a national movement. And Donald Trump, nowhere to be seen. But Denzel Washington, he was everywhere. After watching Teresa's video, Denzel walked back to the podium. "This recess may stop my nominees," he said, his voice steady, "but it can't stop the truth. They can run, they can delay. But now America sees what they've done and what I refuse to do." No one interrupted. No shouting reporters. Only quiet nods. Because this wasn't politics anymore. It was something more. It was honesty. For the first time in decades, the Senate chamber had no words left to say. Across the country, something unexpected began to grow. Not protests, not riots, but prayer circles. In Texas, a pastor stood in a dusty field with ranchers. "God bless this man," the pastor said. "He didn't take the money. He didn't give in to evil. That's why we stand with him." In South Carolina, middle school kids held hands with teachers in a gym. A small boy whispered, "Thank you, God, for a leader who didn't sell us out." Locals took photos and videos and shared them online. Within hours, millions saw everyday Americans standing together in silent prayer, not scared but thankful. On live TV, a news anchor cried. Her voice cracked, "I've never seen anything like this. This isn't politics anymore. This is something deeper." And back in the White House, as the sun went down, Denzel stood, again by the window. No speech, no press. Just the soft sound of America saying back, "Thank you." By the morning of August 5th, the roads told a new story. From Idaho to Indiana, trucks rolled through towns and highways louder than any campaign ad. "We rolled with Washington." The lead truck carried a huge American flag and a homemade banner. "You didn't sell us out. We're driving for you." Number campaign planned it. No super PAC paid for it. It was raw. It was real. Independent truckers who had never been to a rally now blew their horns through cities. People waved. Grandparents, children, veterans, everyday folks who finally had something to believe in. In those trucks, Chants and Prayers America wasn't just backing a man, they were reclaiming their soul. And Denzel, he didn't smile. He didn't brag. He just kept going. Because this wasn't about him. It was about all of them. In Ohio, a man stood by the highway, holding his newborn high as trucks drove by. Tears rolled down his face. "This," he said quietly, "this is what leadership looks like." Drones captured everything. The trucks, the flags, the people lining the roads. No one needed to explain. The images said it all. They weren't following Denzel because of politics. They followed him because for once someone in Washington didn't betray them. Trump's office stayed silent. Chuck Schumer had vanished. But America's voice, it was louder than ever. In the Oval Office, Denzel Washington stood quietly, watching the footage, his face unreadable, his eyes heavy with purpose and pride. On his desk sat a simple brown envelope. It had handwriting on it. From David Grant, a single dad in Nevada. Inside was a letter. The writing wasn't perfect, but the meaning was strong. "Dear Mr. Washington, I used to think nobody in DC cared. I stopped voting after my wife died. I've raised my daughter Madison alone. She's 9 now. Last night, she asked me why I was crying. I showed her your speech. I told her, that man reminded me, we're not forgotten. She smiled and said, I want to be like him when I grow up. Thank you for giving her a hero and giving me hope. Denzel read it once. Then again. Then handed it to his son, Gene David. Son, he said quietly, this is why we never give up. Not for money. Not for power. Never. He folded the letter and slipped it into his coat pocket. He kept it with him the entire day. That night, as the city lights faded and Washington went quiet, Denzel stood alone in the rose garden. He whispered into the night, thank you, David. You're the reason I keep standing. Back in the Oval Office, Denzel's eyes fell on an old photo on his desk. It showed him, as a young man, outside a small theater, many years ago. He was filled with aspirations and principles. He leaned back in his seat, reflecting on everything that had unfolded over the last 3 days. $1 billion payoff, John Thun's backstabbing, Schumer's fall from grace, and the massive wave of support from the people of America. No candidates had been approved. Not yet, but something far more important had been achieved. He shut his eyes and could clearly hear his father's voice echo. Someday, son, they'll challenge your spirit. Not your popularity, not your wins, your soul. Never give that up. When he opened his eyes again, the media crew was preparing for an unplanned national announcement. No teleprompter, Denzel instructed. No prepared words, just a man speaking to his people. His team agreed. This wasn't a message meant for lawmakers. It was meant for Teresa Caldwell, for Elijah, for Harold Jenkins, for David Grant, for every American left behind. Right at 6 p.m., all major news channels switched to the White House. No dramatic music, no fancy graphics, only Denzel Washington at his desk. The American flag standing proudly behind him, his hands gently folded, his presence calm and steady. My fellow Americans, he began, his voice strong but personal. This isn't a speech, it's a conversation. One I owe to you. He laid everything out plainly. The bribe, the video evidence, the betrayal from inside, the media silence, the cries of hardworking families. He didn't read. He spoke from the burden that had rested on his heart for years. Still, his voice never shook. He paused, his tone cracked, but he didn't hide it. I could have accepted the offer. I could have compromised and called it politics. But I vowed to you, to my creator, and to myself, I would never betray this nation's people. Not for influence, not for calm, not for $1 billion. Across the country, families held one another. Strong men wiped away quiet tears. Denzel didn't scream. He didn't brag. He simply told the truth. When the live broadcast ended, homes, diners, and break rooms were filled with deep thought. In a small Kentucky classroom, Mrs. Carla Hines had her class watch the address as part of their government studies. After it ended, the room was still. A student, usually distracted, slowly raised his hand. Miss Hines, why'd he say no? He could have had everything. Mrs. Hines smiled warmly. Because sometimes doing what's right means losing something, but gaining everything that really counts. That afternoon, she shared a message online. Today I taught 26 kids what real integrity looks like, not from a book, but from a man who stood tall when it would have been easier to sit down. Thank you, Mr. Washington. You gave them a lesson they'll never forget. Within hours, the post went viral. That evening, Denzel's staff showed him the message. He leaned back in his chair, exhaustion visible, but his heart full. That, Denzel said quietly, means more than every headline in the world. And at that moment, it became clear to everyone. This wasn't about politics anymore. It was about legacy. And Denzel Washington's legacy wasn't being written by media or pundits. It was being etched into the hearts of regular Americans. People who, for once, felt truly seen, protected, and guided. While the country was healing, Donald Trump was falling apart. Alone in his dark office, he watched Denzel's speech over and over, his face pale, his jaw clenched. Every word Denzel spoke echoed like thunder, crashing into Trump's ego. But what came next would destroy him. A whistleblower from Trump's own inner circle leaked confidential memos, documents exposing Trump's long-running plan to block Denzel's nominees. In return for favors, secret deals, and billionaire contributions, one line in particular spread across the internet like fire. If Denzel won't cooperate, we shut his whole system down. That note, dated days before the failed bribery, was real. And now, it was everywhere. Social media erupted with anger, with shame, but mostly with pride. Pride in a leader who could have bent and didn't. Denzel's media team said nothing. They didn't have to. The truth had already spoken. And just like that, political walls fell away. For the first time in ages, Americans stood together, not red or blue, but united, declaring, enough. After a stormy 48 hours that shook the nation's soul, Denzel sat alone inside the private area of the White House. Silent, thoughtful. The wind tapped softly at the windows as memories flashed through his mind. David Grant's letter, the trucker's convoy, Elijah's hug. He wasn't untouched by emotion. Beneath his composed face was a father, a teacher, a man who had walked through decades of corruption and chosen another way. A tear rolled down his cheek as he whispered, "They still believe. Even after it all, they still believe." He stood up, fixed his cufflinks, and stepped out. A Marine saluted. Denzel nodded back, saying, "Let's get to work." The Senate was still on break. His nominations were still held up. But something greater had been set free. Denzel Washington had earned what no money could ever purchase: the deep trust of America's soul. The next morning, Denzel shocked the press with a live nationwide call-in show. For the first time, everyday citizens could speak directly to the president. A grandmother in Wisconsin cried, "You stood for us when no one else did." A disabled veteran said, "I fought under this flag. You honored it." A quiet young former Democrat admitted, "I didn't vote for you before, but now, I would stand with you any day." Denzel listened to every person. He didn't interrupt. He didn't try to impress. He simply listened, the way a real leader does. In his final words, Denzel said, "I didn't fight this fight to be praised. I did it because the janitors, the bus drivers, the parents, and the service workers deserve better than backroom deals and dirty politics." Then came the line that froze the nation. "I'd rather lose every Senate vote than lose the soul of this country." Across the country, people didn't just hear him, they felt him. That night, from New York to Texas, California to Kansas, candles appeared in windows. Firefighters, nurses, truckers, veterans, students, they weren't organized. There were no slogans, just a silent message in glowing light. "We stand with the truth." In a quiet room in North Carolina, Elijah sat beside his mom, holding her hand. "He didn't take the money, Mama," Elijah whispered. "He did what was right." In Iowa, Harold the farmer hammered a new sign onto his fence. "Washington stood. So did we." And back in the Oval Office, Denzel Washington looked out at the soft flickers across the National Mall. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply nodded, not with pride, but with purpose. He hadn't just said no to a bribe. He had reminded a tired country what courage really is. This wasn't the end. This was the beginning.